What's good? It's your boy CJ Goodfellow. We back with the boxing clinic, last and final video probably for the night. We're gonna top it off with a boxing video, you dig? And it's a breakdown prediction for the World Boxing Super Series, number one versus the last seed in Jamie Cox. Number one guy's George Groves. He holds the WBA title, only real world title in the tournament. You got the IBO held by Chris Eubanks Jr. I don't consider that a real world title. And you got the WBC Diamond Belt won by Callum Smith already. Just means you are like an interim champion in waiting. And David Benavidez holds that real title belt. But you have two guys that I think that's very familiar with each other, and Jamie Cox and George Groves. A lot of people, let's start with George Groves being a champion. Let's show proper respect. A lot of people seen George Groves fail so many times. Felt he got jerked in the first Carl Froch fight by the ref. Then Carl Froch got a second look and dropped him and knocked him out. Then he failed versus Badou Jack. And he finally got it done versus Fedor Shuvanov. I think he did fight Martin Murray as well. He climbed his way back up. And Badou Jack just, annihilated him. Like most people didn't think he could do, after losing to Derek Edwards. Badou Jack, climbed his way back on up. He beat Anthony Dirrell, beat George Groves. To me, he beat James DeGale. And then he went up and beat Nathan Cleverly. And, George Groves didn't get down on himself. Picked himself back up. I think he got a jaw injury versus Fedor Shuvanov. Knocked him out in 6. So, he's back on that right path. Finally won the world championship. He failed many times and finally got it. And people felt if he didn't beat Fedor Shuvanov, it never was going to happen. And if he lost to Fedor Shuvanov, I don't think he probably wouldn't be in this tournament, or maybe just would have slid in as a lower level seed. So we got 2 fights out the way already, with Eubanks beating the Turkish guy Avin Yurderman, and then Callum Smith beating the other guy from wherever the hell he's from, Sweden or whatever. So there's 2 fights left. It's this fight and who else is left? It's this fight and it's trying to think. Robert Brandt and the other guy from Germany. I forgot when that fight is going to be. But if you haven't seen Jamie Cox, he's a guy that started off at light middleweight, junior middleweight. Jumped over middleweight according to everything I read, and went to super middleweight. He's a guy that's a southpaw, aggressive guy, can hold and grab, fight on the inside, loves to come forward. He's 5'11", really don't have an arm reach on him, but George Groves is 5'11 and a half. He sparred with Kell Brook. I heard he knocked out Badou Jack, rumored. Sparred Canelo Alvarez and got his respect as well. So he doesn't have the names on his resume, but he sparred some of the best, and got some good sparring stories behind him. Some legal trouble in his background. That's why he's been off and on in his career. And looking at who he's fought, he hasn't been on the upper echelon level. He hasn't been on that level George Groves has been on. He's fought a lot of 4-rounder fights recently. I don't think he's been 12 because his career's been off and on because of his legal issues. He was the Commonwealth champion back in the amateurs in the UK. I think it was a gold medalist. So he does have some, credence behind him. There's a lot of respect behind him. He has some definite skills, and let's get into that. Start off with Jamie Cox. He's a southpaw. He's a cowboy in there, man. He takes chances. He's wild, but he moves his head some. Got power in both hands. He got power. At least on the lower level guys he's been fighting. The last guy he fought was like 19 and 35. I think it was on the Kell Brook undercard. Don't quote me on that. But he ain't been fighting really nobody that's worth a damn. And I think that's what's going to become a major factor in this fight. But he got a strong left hook. He got a strong right hook. He got a strong left hook as well. Stop guys to the body and the head. I think he's 24-0 with 13 knockouts. So he has some type of power, but I don't think he's fully acclimated to the super middleweight level yet. But he has some special skills as far as his aggressive offensive nature, being able to hold. He can be a little dirty in there. I've seen him a few of his fights rabbit punch behind the head and do some dirty, grimy things. He's a very emotional type of fighter, it seems like, and that's pretty much him. You talk about George Groves, he's a guy that likes to move backwards. You don't see too many guys that like to move backwards over in the UK and box on the back foot. Well, that's George Groves. Tries to have like an American style where he can move backwards and box on the back foot, but he's not, too slick. If he goes against somebody that's slick and that's more versed in that style or understands that style, he's not the best at the style, but it works for him. He has a lot of skill. He has some solid power. He got some good speed. I mean, he's a good fighter, but he's just not slick. He has the style down pat, but he's not slick. He doesn't have the defensive maneuvers. And I think that's where he can get caught up. That's where he got caught up with Badou Jack. Badou Jack understood that style because he's training there in Vegas, and he sees that style altogether. He knew the body doesn't move, and George Groves' head doesn't move to complement that style. And that's what I mean. He's not slick. So, that's the ins and outs. And Jamie Coxx is just his biggest weakness is the fact that he hasn't been on the level George Groves has been on. Even though George Groves took some L's, and people look at his record like, ooh, he got some L's. Jamie Coxx hasn't. Look at Jamie Coxx resume. Said Jamie Foxx. He look at his resume. He's not remotely on the level that George Groves has been on. And I think that's going to be the hang up in this fight. I think George Groves is going to be able to withstand Jamie Coxx pressure unless Jamie Coxx lands some really targets the body like Badou Jack did and keeps the pressure on him with the jab and put the right hook and catches. With the left hook and put the right hook behind him. The right hook and the left hook combination, maybe he can catch George Groves and knock him out. But I look at George Groves be very familiar, box on the back foot, put that stick on him, and show him that there's levels to this and that he's going to come up short versus George Groves. I want to pick Jamie Coxx, but I just don't see him be fighting on that real lower bottom level tier fighters he fighting with, and then coming up high and all of a sudden competing with George Groves. No matter all the sparring wars he's been in and guys he sparred, the fight game is a different thing. I look for George Groves to win a nice 3 or 4 point unanimous decision and move on to fight Creasy Bates Jr.